what we need you to do is 95% of your work, get 95% of your work done 95% correctly or 90% correctly. And I go, but I'm going to make mistakes. And she goes, I know. We just need you to get it done, man. And I thought that was such an aha moment for me. It has shaped so much of my life.
It feels good, right? Yo, I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Harry Potter breaking bread with the muggles. They said I wouldn't make it. Now they looking puzzled. They said I wouldn't take it.
All right, John, are you ready?
Ready.
All right, Ty, you ready?
Oh, power I ride 44 wham, Cav.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we sitting down and taking a timeout with today?
Cav, good to see you, man. And ladies and gentlemen, we have Jon Spaker, the president and CEO of Fee Brothers, straight out of Happy Valley. John, thanks for being on the show. And the first question I want to ask you, man, we see that you're an avid sailor, dude. You know, football's cool, but I think sailing around the world is just a little cooler. My question is, what port, if me, you, Kev, and Joe Pa are about to go on a sailing trip, what port are we leaving from and where the heck are we going?
Well, I live in Rochester, New York now, so we'd set sail from the port of Rochester. There's a lot to do across Lake Ontario, and it leads straight out to the ocean. So we've got lots that we could do right here.
Wow, does that go through Canada east?
We can get up to Canada, up to the Thousand Islands, out the St. Lawrence Seaway, past Montreal, and out into the ocean. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Great Loop, but it goes through the Great Lakes, down through the Mississippi, through the Gulf of Mexico, back up the Intracoastal Waterway, and it's one big loop. People will spend a year doing it, and it looks like a ton of fun. So someday when I retire, you and I are taking a long boat trip.
That is amazing.
I didn't even know that existed, John.
Yep.
Dude. And my other question to double on that, how did they sail back in the day, man? Like before any technology, and I've heard a lot of it with the star aligning and stuff, but coming from a sailor, take the floor, dude. Educate me and Kev a little bit, please.
Well, there are a couple of different ways. They had square-rigged ships where you've heard the term trade winds, and they knew how the winds would blow around the ocean, and so they had to push. But if you've heard of the Bernoulli effect on airplane wings, where the wings are shaped in a way where it creates low pressure over the top, and it actually sucks the airplane wing up as much as pushing it up from underneath. Turn that on its side, and now you've got a sailboat that can't sail directly into the wind, but towards the wind because it's being sucked forward. So when you see sailboats kind of heeled over on its side, it's being sucked forward. So we could sail a lot of places, but that's how people got around back in the day.
It's amazing. That is amazing. All right, we're driving by or floating by or sailing by, and you had to put on those beautiful massive sails of your sailboat a quote that everybody kind of got to see, and I got to read and understand maybe just a little bit more about John. What's the one quote that you would leave people with?
Oh, gee. The only thing that's coming to mind is just the word enjoy. Like, we're all going to be dead soon. If you're not having fun right now, I think it would just be the word enjoy.
I love that. Life's too short. And I love how you said it, is just enjoying the moment and embracing it. And you probably have to do that. I mean, because when you get out there and sail, I'm sure you have a vision of a perfect day and it's all going to go great. But something tells me that sailing has this unpredictability about it sometimes. Do you have any great sailing stories that you thought it looked like a beautiful day out on Lake Ontario, and then maybe God or somebody else had some other choices for you?
Plenty. I would never choose to go out in poor weather, but funny that we're talking about this because so many it's almost a metaphor for management or running a business. You plan for the best. You never put yourself in a tough situation, but you're going to find yourself there one way or the other. And I always brought everybody back in one piece so far. So that's my claim to fame.
That's amazing.
Well, all right, John. Well, I trust you, man. I trust you in that ballpark right there. I wanted to ask you, man, if us three are going down to maybe watch the ponies run in Saratoga, what cocktail and Fee Brother mixer sour or whatever are we making together?
Well, my favorite of recent, I've been getting into mezcals, and my favorite recently, one of my two favorite drinks that uses our bitters is a Oaxacan Old Fashioned. Oaxacan, Oaxacan, Oaxacan Old Fashioned. And it's 1.5 ounces reposado tequila, 1/2 ounce of mezcal, a little bit of agave is the simple syrup, and then bitters. And I'm not a tobacco guy at all, but our tobacco bitters are my favorite bitters. And so I throw a little bit of our tobacco bitters in there, maybe a dash of orange too. And it's a delicious drink. It'll get you where you're going.
What I had to ask too, because Tyler and I were talking about all the different types of bitters. What was the strangest one that you've made so far that was like so beyond what you could even comprehend as to what could be made into a bitter?
I can't say that there is anything that has shocked me from what could we do. It's probably worth mentioning real quickly. There are 5 main flavors that you can taste: sweet, savory, salty, sour, and bitter. And so what happened was back in the think about the 80s, and everybody's drinking pina coladas, and it's a sweet drink, but it's a very one-dimensional drink. And since then, what has happened is there's been an evolution in the mixology industry, and there's some incredible artists out there, incredible mixologists out there that have figured out how to overlay multiples of those 5 flavors. And so now you go from a one-dimensional drink to a 2 or 3-dimensional drink. And if you've ever had an old fashioned and taken a sip before you put the bitters in, and then put 2 dashes of bitters in and taken a sip again, that is, the light bulb goes off and you go, oh, that's what that does. And it took that experiment for me to figure out what bitters do. So there isn't necessarily a weird bitters that we have made, but the oddest in our current lineup is our habanero bitters, and it is very hot and it's very tasty. And the whole point of doing this is specifically for spicy margaritas. We've got a great place here in Rochester called Bitter Honey, and they'll ask you when you order a spicy margarita, you want spicy 1 through 10. And people will, it's like a challenge at the table. Somebody, right, Tyler wants 10. So then they'll take it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And, they'll put that many dashes in it, and it's delicious. But it's a great product, but it's a little bit odd compared to the other bitters we have, because the whole point of it is heat.
You had me at habanero. I would so do that in a drink. And I love what you said is kind of like this evolution of mixology. In the 80s, we were drinking one-dimensional pina coladas, and we all thought they were amazing. But almost kind of setting us up for leadership today, just like you said with sailing, just like we talked about this evolution, this multi-dimensions that we're now seeing in leadership. What lessons have you, I guess, learned from the things that you were doing from creating of these bitters, right? Thinking outside the box, doing something different than anybody else has ever done, but also from sailing, and I even go way back to where you got your degree in insurance. How has that made you or set you up to be this 5th generation leader at Fee Brothers?
Yeah, a great question. I think the biggest answer comes from the mentors that I've had over the years. So I spent 24 years in the insurance industry, and was very lucky to have some incredible mentors. And they were people that had tough conversations with me when I needed tough conversations. There were people who opened doors for me. There were people who grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and kind of threw me into the right direction when that needed to happen. But there are also people who modeled for me leadership behavior. And they were people who were comfortable kind of taking a back seat in the back of the room and letting their team shine. And while this is all very cliche to say, also when something went wrong, the first people to stand up and take responsibility for it. And that's a very simple managerial, very cliche thing to say, but it works. And that's how you build trust in the team. And it's how you allow there to be a safe space to fail. And so I've hopefully been able to pass on that type of mentorship to others in the insurance industry. And frankly, I've only been at Fee Brothers now for 3 years. So a little bit over 3.5 years. So we've been able to, my brother and I, as co-owners of Fee Brothers, have been able to share that type of mentorship philosophy as we build out our org structure and make sure that our management team is adopting that as well. And it's how we've almost quadrupled our number of employees in the past 3.5, 4 years.
That's amazing. Ty, I'm going to hand it over to you.
That is awesome, John. You touched on a lot of things. So that I went through in my life, even with my coaches, I remember when they gave me the freedom to miss a shot or miss a block, as long as I was going full speed, like what that did to any team I've ever been on, compared to you're not allowed to miss a shot or miss a block or whatever the case may be, was just paramount, man, especially with kids, and all we are big kids nowadays. If no one's get caught onto that. but you were talking, man. Can you share some of the best constructive criticism you got along the way? You said you had some good leaders point out some things. Is there anything you can remember that where you were like, oh, heck, I do that? And then I'm going to fix that?
Yeah, it's not a specific moment that I can remember. But the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that is there were so many things that as I was coming up through the insurance industry and, started out in claims, moved into a sales rep role, and then moved into regional sales director and regional president as the officer of this national multi-billion-dollar insurance organization. And along the way, these mentors that I had the privilege of caring for me, they really reset my expectation as to what the definition of a good job is. In my mind, coming out of college and getting into the workforce, I thought a good job was perfection. And so one of my first lessons was, we don't need you to do 50% of your work 100% correctly, because I was trying to do everything exactly perfectly. And this is going way back to my early 20s. What we need you to do is 95% of your work, get 95% of your work done 95% correctly or 90% correctly. And I go, but I'm going to make mistakes. And she goes, I know, it's okay. We just need you to get it done, man. And I thought that was such an aha moment for me. It has shaped so much of my life. And my career, and has allowed me to excel and go places that, if not but for that thought, and then there were other mentors along the way that they just helped me understand, hey, you're paying attention to the wrong thing, or you need to slow down a little bit, but look further out to the horizon. And so by the time you get there, it's already all lined up, teed up, and you wake up in the morning and it's no big deal. So just some real basic things that, now I have to remind myself there are new people coming into whatever industry that you're in, and they might need to be told this, and that's okay.
I love it, John. I just got told something the other day that just could not be more best for my brain, man. Some guy told me slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I was like, oh, how did you know I needed that?
I love it.
That's such a good phrase, Ty. And I think, John, what you talked about is resetting those expectations. Did you feel at that point in time that maybe you reduced the expectations that you had, at least on yourself? Because I think that's That's one of the things where you said do 50% of it 100%. I think a lot of people are recovering perfectionists in some way or form or fashion, especially with those areas of our life that become the area of our life. How did you get yourself comfortable by reducing those expectations? And I'm sure that's allowed your team to come up with some of these bitters that nobody else has thought of yet.
Well, yes and no. And so I'll answer the first part first. So frankly and transparently, I was on the verge of being fired because I was not getting enough work product done. And I'm going back to, this was, man, I'm 48 now. It must have been, I was 22, 23. I mean, I was getting my butt kicked because I was trying to do everything perfectly, but I was only getting half my job done. And I literally was on the verge of being fired. And this was kind of my last chance. And so it was a very pivotal moment in my life that I had to adapt or die. And thank goodness I found myself in that situation so young in my life, and that I wasn't able to put a Band-Aid on it and not figure it out until I was, until it was 20 years later, because it served me so well. And then when it comes to bitters, we are very fortunate to have some incredible food scientists that work for us. And our director, he's one of the smartest guys I know. And so it's, again, one of those cliche things where you hire the right people and then you get out of their way. And so did we all come up with a strategy as to how to figure out what the next flavors of bitters are? Absolutely. But once we got to that point, with his voice very included in that conversation, then we got out of his way and let him do his Willy Wonka magic. And it's been incredible.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Because I think when you say it's the ability to adapt or perish, right? Or
yeah.
And hearing it's almost like the Michael Jordan story, how he was let go of almost his high school basketball team, and then we know him now to today with all his accomplishments. What was the biggest lesson you had to learn? Like, you were going from somebody else's business, right? Working within this massive, you said, $1 billion organization, and now this was yours, right? And your brothers and your family.
Yeah.
What was that lesson that you needed to learn maybe early on within the last 3 years to bring you to that mindset of adapt, thrive? Otherwise, we might go backwards.
Yeah, it's that's a really good question. I'll share a couple of things that I've learned. So I've always been around the family business because it was started by my great-great-grandfather and his brothers back in 1864. It came down to my great-grandfather, then my grandfather. It came down to my aunt and uncle. And then when my uncle unexpectedly passed away, my aunt called and said, "You're the business brains of the family. Would you mind helping me keep this thing moving until I figure out what to do?" And about 4 to 6 weeks later, she said, "Hey, would you ever consider buying the business?" And I said, "I never would have, because I love you and my uncle as my aunt and uncle, but I would have killed you as my business partners." But I said, with my uncle already passed away, I said, if you're willing to make some changes to the business, yes, I would talk with you about buying it. And that's when we talked about my brother and I becoming partners and getting in to the shop. And, as I said, our employee count has almost quadrupled in the past 4 years. Our revenue has almost tripled in the past 4 years, and that's after being in business 160 years. So the things that I learn as I look back through hindsight, as you're moving forward, you're exploring like different paths of possibilities and what you could do. And there are some of them that they just aren't going to work out. And so you stop, you turn off that artery, if you will, and you move back to the main line of things. And if I could turn back time and know right now know then everything that I know right now, there are different opportunities that we would not have chased down. There are other threats, if you will. That's a strong word, but that we would have jumped on a little bit sooner. But we're very fortunate to be in a forgiving business. We make drink mixes. As long as no employee is getting hurt and all the products are safe to use, nothing else really matters. We're not putting somebody on the moon. We're not doing brain surgery. So if we can't have fun doing what we're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. And as I look back on the past 3-4 years, there are different things that different paths I wouldn't have gone down, but it's only through hindsight that I know that. Mm-hmm. And so, as we talk about having a safe place to fail, part of that philosophy is it's okay to fail, but fail fast. If you know it's not going to work, get it over with quick and let's move on to something else. Mm-hmm. And we've been lucky to do that, and it served us well.
So many things in there. No, well, I'll get back to Ty. What do you got? Because I got so many things.
Where did you adopt this mindset of, like, for one, having enjoy on your sale, and then you almost think a lot like myself, and what we're doing is so minuscule compared to, and people make these minuscules and just blow them out of proportion. A real problem would be like Earth getting off its orbit, right? We're just floating into like blackness. Is probably let's call 911 then. But where do you get that from? That mindset, because it's hard to come by, man.
I think I've led a very charmed life. I've had a lot of incredible things provided for me that I'm very grateful for. I've had a lot of incredible things work out that I've worked very hard for too. And I've had my share of moments where I've gotten my butt kicked and gotten knocked down. But I think disappointment, whether it's business or relationships or whatever it is, disappointment happens when reality does not meet our expectations. And then what we can do with that is we can either change our reality or we can change our expectations. But if I have fair expectations and I work hard and my reality meets those expectations, which includes, I'm gonna mess some things up along the way. Yes, we're gonna have some employees that are gonna mess some things up along the way, because I once was an employee that was messing some things up along the way. Like, that's how this goes. But at the end of the day, we're making drink mixes and everything's gonna be okay as long as nobody gets hurt. Mm-hmm. If that is your expectation and I achieve that expectation going into today, what do I have to be sad about? Mm-hmm. And so reality is meeting my expectations. And there are too many things in life where people are always thinking about what's next. Well, then now we got to work towards this, and now we got to work towards this. Sure. Well, always have, your next goal in mind, because otherwise you're not really moving anywhere. But for the love of God, take some time out and pat yourself on the back and say, hey, I just crossed 17 different finish lines in the last year. Like, we're crushing this. And now this next year, we're going to crush it too. But set reasonable expectations, work hard, and, just have a good sense of humor about it all, because we're all going to be dead soon.
I love your simplicity of it. And I love your cycle of what's next. Because what I heard in your voice, John, is that you have the ability to stop and celebrate, and I'll be one of those people that it was never really a celebration, and that's where Tyler and I kind of came to it, and he was the one teaching me. But it's more about the journey, not the destination. But I was one of those sailors, right? That it was all about, okay, I'm at B, I want to get to A, and then I get to A, and it's like it was always so underwhelming. Was it sailing? Was it your upbringing? Was it getting kicked in the teeth? Like, what was it that allowed you to start to see and embrace the journey, to celebrate those mile markers? Like you said, I just went through 17 finish lines to get to this big finish line. How did you get yourself there? How did you start thinking in that way? Because I think that is a crucial piece to what you just shared.
Yeah, thanks. I think it was a mixture of everything. I mean, my familial culture, how I was raised, all the experiences, all the education, the mentors that I had, listening to other people, listening to, seeing what worked and what didn't work. One of the things that that is coming to mind right now as you ask that question is there was a conversation that we would have as we were discussing how we were going to hit our yearly goals. And this was in corporate America. And one of the questions often would be, what are we going to do different next year? Because if we're doing everything the same, we have to expect the same results. That's true. You have to. Growth does not happen unless you get outside of your comfort zone. And that question was meant to help us get outside of our comfort zone and kind of look at things in a new light. And that needs to happen for growth to happen. Also, at the same time, it had me thinking, well, wait a second, philosophically, when is good enough enough? And when it comes to business, I don't care if I have a big business or a small business. I need to have a decent enough margin to be sustainable. And I have to have a plan for the future. It doesn't have to be anything special about how we are going to be sustainable. And if we have a good margin and a sustainable plan of just how to continue marching into the future, I'm not losing sleep at night. And I tell you, if all of my employees are well cared for and the product that we're putting out is a good, safe product, the next thing on my list of things that make me happy is a good night's sleep. The rest of it, I just really don't care about. Like, at some point in time, enough is enough. And at some point in time, good enough is good enough. And geez, if I'm not enjoying life right now, what more do I need? So I don't know. I don't know exactly that there was a singular moment that created that philosophy. I mean, it's just a summation of everything that's happened in my life.
Yeah. But it's just the having faith and the belief, right? And I loved how you talked about it earlier when we were first starting, but seeing the shoreline, even when you're going through the storm, right? You never took your sight off of that shoreline, right? To know why I'm going through this enduring storm and what it's going to look like on the other side. And I think that brings you ultimately peace and harmony, because what is good enough? And I love how you said, it's like you sit down, we say, well, what are we going to do better next year? And a lot of this stuff, it amazes Tyler and I, but we always say we kind of overcomplicate business because a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is like, it's not you changing another process for the umpteenth time to squeeze just a tiny bit more margin. And I've heard you also say a couple of times too, John, is you're talking about your employees before that safe quality product that you're putting out. And I think that right there is the different equation that is making you a little bit different, is that it's people before your product, or it's people before your purpose. And it's people. And I've heard that a couple of times where you're asking them too, who are closest to the problems, to be involved within the creation of the solution itself. Did that come naturally to you, or is that something that you again learned from corporate America to see that maybe profits are very important, yes, for the sustainability factor, but without people, we don't have profits either? How did you get yourself comfortable with that? Because you've mentioned.
I think you've got two different models in our society, and one is for privately owned companies, and another is for publicly traded companies. Those publicly traded companies, they have to meet their objectives. They have to. That's how the system's designed. That's how it's set up. They have to do the things, follow the plan, make the goals, figure out how to reach those goals. They have to hit those objectives. because that's how that game works. And I respect that. The other piece is for the privately owned businesses like Fee Brothers. And in those businesses, we have the ridiculous luxury of being able to make decisions that don't make any financial sense, because we're doing it for the good of the people. We're doing it for the culture. We're doing it for the branding. We don't have an ROI or a cost benefit analysis. You just know in your gut and in your heart that it's the right thing to do. And so if my employees are well taken care of and our product is safe, everything else we can get to, because we're not an over leveraged company. We don't need to squeak out every little penny that we have. The economy of our business, of Fee Brothers itself, is very strong, and that affords us the luxury of making the right decision instead of needing to eke out every penny. And that type of culture carries forward in ways that repays itself in spades, but over time. You might not get a return on that in 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years. And there's no way that you can sit down with a spreadsheet and calculate the ROI, because it's all conjecture. You're just doing what you think is the right thing. And, most of it is, you got to listen to people who are smarter than you are. You need to do some research. You've got to listen to the industry. We have to listen to our customers, who are the importers and the distributors around the world, and say, what is it that you need? What hole do you have in your portfolio that maybe we can help fill? Because that is where the demand is coming from, is our customers, and then their customers, who are the bartenders and baristas around the world. And so if we just keep listening, making sure that our employees are safe and making sure that we've got a quality product, the rest of it just kind of falls into place.
I love it. No one wanted to stand back, but also step forward, like you said earlier, within leadership. It's fascinating.
Well, that's a great point. And I will just say that's one thing that my brother Ben and I have. Every decision that we've made when coming to Fee Brothers, and since we've gotten here, every single decision we've made is what option can we select that sets Fee Brothers up to not need us? We need, if Ben and I get hit by a bus tomorrow, we want Fee Brothers to be able to wake up Wednesday morning and get back to work without so much as a hiccup, because if we have so much ego in this business that it needs to be more about us, and our decisions are that important that the company needs to rely on us to make those decisions. Well, geez, that's all we've done, is we've created this great echo chamber that is reliant on two people that it shouldn't be relying on. Then the business is about us instead of us being about the business. We want the business to far exceed our time here on earth. And we're lucky just to be the stewards of it for this generation.
Woo.
Well, John, I hope a lot of people listen to this one.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. We're not blowing smoke, man. We've done this over 100 times with leaders, and this message right here needs to be heard.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely. And I just got to ask you, though. So everyone's talking about this crazy economy right now. Did your family went through Prohibition and Great Depression during this, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any gnarly stories about those days that are passed down or passed up, I guess?
Yeah. How much time do you have?
I was thinking the same damn thing, Ty.
Prohibition stories. I'll just give you the quick history on Prohibition and a couple of quick stories along the way. So Fee Brothers was making wine and whiskey when Prohibition came upon us. So of course we had to stop making whiskey, because there's no such thing as sacramental whiskey, but there should be. But there is such thing as sacramental wine, right? And so we continued making wine into Prohibition because the churches need their sacramental wine. Now, during that time, you also were allowed to make up to 200 gallons of wine in your home, which is still the limit today. But nobody knew how to do it. So Fee Brothers would go into people's homes and make wine for them, leave, come back, bottle it. And that way it was all legal. We still have the record book of who we made wine for during Prohibition, all handwritten. During that time, so we made the altar wine, we made wine in people's homes, and we also made a product called Bruin. It's a bear. And that was code for it's a beer. And on the back of the label, it said, do not put yeast in this product or it will turn into an illegal substance. Wink, wink. And we were making unfermented beer and getting people unfermented beer that they can make their own beer. And then what happened was my great-grandfather passed away, and he had always wanted to get out of alcohol altogether. People were distilling their own spirits at their home and then coming to my great-grandfather and saying, we know that you have flavors and that you can help us make help us make this awful tasting spirit better. So he would give them some flavorings to help make it taste better. And that's how Fee Brothers became who we are today. So you've got Midori, which is a melon liqueur, right? We make a melon cordial syrup. And the idea is if you mix it with, a neutral spirit like vodka or something, you make your own version of Midori. Or, you can extrapolate that over triple sec or whatever it is. We've got all of it. We are best known for our bitters, but our bitters is only 20% of our total catalog of products. And so that is how Fee Brothers became who we are today. After he passed, my great-grandmother contacted the Liquor Control Board or whoever was in charge at that time and said, we want to get out of even making wine altogether. What she didn't know is that they were going to come and crack open the wine barrels so soon. And they did, and sent all the wine down the Genesee River. And then she thought better of herself afterwards. She thought, I should have bottled that stuff and sold it, then called them and told them. But so there's lots of fun little Prohibition stories. And at Fee Brothers, the location where we are now, we've only really had 3 locations, but the location where we are now, we were not there during Prohibition. But the company who was there during Prohibition had a real speakeasy in the basement, just a little room, probably about the size of this room, maybe twice as big. But there is a speakeasy from Prohibition in the basement under Fee Brothers today. So if you guys ever make your way up to Rochester, let me know. I'd be happy to show you.
Oh, well, my ass.
You might want to go there this afternoon, dude.
Yeah. I'm still up here. Tyler's the smart one that moved away. No, I'm just kidding. I love how you just said, I just hear stories of resolve and resilience, right? To eventually revolutionize what you guys were doing as an organization and as a company. What a cool story. That was really cool. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Tyler and I were talking before, and I was like, man, how did they survive the Prohibition? Thinking exactly what you had just described.
You got to reinvent yourself, and necessity is the mother of invention.
Always. Yeah. And I just love that. You guys were willing to teach other people to fish, right? Because other people wouldn't do that. They would say, oh man, we're giving away now too much behind the scenes where people will be able to live without us, to your earlier point. And I just love how you kind of brought full circle all those stories that you heard through all those generations to really incorporate within your leadership model today of what you're building over there too.
It's we are very much listening, and while bitters are hot right now, our fastest growing product is Fee Foam. So if you use egg white in, let's say, a pisco sour or a shaken whiskey sour, you put egg white in the drink and you shake it up in the shaker, strain it into a glass, and it's got a nice frothy head on top of the drink. But some people don't like egg whites in their drinks. Other people don't want the mess. Other people don't want the expense. Other people, all all these reasons. It's a lot faster. So we've got what's called fee foam, and it is really taking the world by storm. We just put on a new distributor in the United Arab Emirates, and they are airlifting pallets of fee foam into Dubai, which is blowing my mind. That's how exciting this product is. So there's all these things that you just have to keep listening and figure out what's next, because at some point in time, sure, bitters are great, but there will be the next thing. And are we listening to understand what that next thing is? And are we going to be able to provide that when the industry needs it?
Dude.
How do you keep your ego in check? Like you like, I just have never heard anybody speak like you are, listening to understand, right? Listening for our next best thing, listening to our cut. Like, you've talked about listening, and I commonly say listening is a dying art today. Whether it's in leadership, whether it's at home, whether it's everywhere. But how do you keep that ego in check? Because ego and pride come into these leadership roles in some instances, right? Where we stop listening and we almost defend or justify or reason, right? How have you started to, I guess, to put that aside to get to this headspace where it's every decision that we make is a decision, so we don't need to be here?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just lucky to be here. I mean, first of all, there aren't too many people who get to take over a family business. So frankly, I mean, if I'm being really honest, I got lucky to be born into a family that has a business. None of that is by choice. That just kind of happened. I am incredibly fortunate that the mentors that I had in the insurance industry, the experience that I had in the insurance industry, and the executive leadership skills that were fostered in me in the insurance industry and through corporate America helped me get a much better perspective on business and people and doing business with people. And then the other piece is just, again, the economy of Fee Brothers to be a privately owned business that is not over leveraged. You get to catch your breath and sit back and really think about some things and just try and do what's right for people, including yourself. You know, in the spirit of, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help the person next to you put their oxygen mask on. And I'm very lucky that things for us at Fee Brothers are good. So we have the capacity and the ability and the patience to listen. And because without that, Jon Spaker isn't going to tell the entire mixology and cocktail world what's going to happen next. There are incredible people out there doing really neat things. And for us to have a part, there's a slogan that with Fee Brothers, don't squeeze, use fees. And that came from back during Prohibition, when my great grandfather was providing flavors to people to help their homemade illegal liquor taste better. In that spirit of don't squeeze, use fees, what's coming up next that we can help with? And to me, it's a whole lot more fun to do that than it is to think that I somehow, out of the billions of people in the world, have the secret sauce to what's going to happen next in the world.
That is awesome, John. Dude, I got to ask you, man, were you like fighting some like inner demons for a while to not work for the family? Because I would probably be doing something like you to like prove yourself or anything, or you were just in insurance and a few other avenues there we saw. But what got you to finally leap over what you said, 3-4 years ago?
Yep. Yeah. So I never was going to work for the family business. I had a tremendous respect for it, but my aunt and uncle, who did a phenomenal job of working for my my grandfather, who was a child of the Depression, God rest his soul, and he would use pencils all the way down to the eraser. And so he was running the business the same way. And my aunt and uncle had to, well, he owned the business, they had to adhere to that management style. And so there was a whole lot of scarcity or perception of scarcity, and they had to operate under that perception for the years that he was running. Then my aunt and uncle got in, and they really started to blow the doors off. And that's where the demand started to really take off. So when Ben and I showed up, there was this tremendous amount of demand built up, but they, only having worked at Fee Brothers, didn't really know how to scale up a business. Nor did they have, to their credit, nor did they have necessarily the resources to do so as the company was building in those years back in 2009 to 2012. And so Ben and I got very lucky to come in. All the hard work had been done. The demand had been created. Now all we get to do is scale up a business. Like, we got the easy job, you know? But I loved my career in insurance, and I thought I was going to stay there until I retired. I really liked it. I missed it. In fact, I picked up, I'm an adjunct professor teaching insurance and risk management at a local university. I'm on the board of directors of a mutual insurance company nearby. I miss it. I like it. But it was my uncle passing away that my aunt called and said, hey, you know, we're going to sell this business outside the family if you don't take it. And I never would have taken it before, because their management style was similar to my grandfather's in some respects, where it was, hey, you're going to come here, you're going to learn from us, we're going to teach you how to do everything a certain way. And while I appreciate and respect what they did, my management style and how I work is different. And I valued my relationship with them more than I valued the business. So I'd rather have an aunt and an uncle than a business. And it wasn't until we had that conversation that I said, if you're willing to make some changes, and then there was a clear definition of, you own the business up until here, and then we buy it, and then we own it after here. And that those healthy boundaries and those clear expectations allowed us to maintain the great aunt-nephew relationship that we still have today.
Wow, dude, that is super cool, John. Do you feel different getting out of bed nowadays? Like getting up, with because like what you're doing is fun to me. You know, do you feel any different every day you get up with a different sort of purpose? Or it sounds like you've been pretty dang solid this whole time, if I'm hearing you right.
Yeah, life has been very good for me. And I never take that for granted. I'm very, very grateful. You know, the moments that I think I celebrate the most when it comes to Fee Brothers are moments where our employees win. One of the biggest things that we've done has been to create a profit sharing plan. And that allows us to open up the books to all the employees and to talk about the numbers and to have them really understand what's going on. Because when Fee Brothers makes money, they make money. And when Fee Brothers makes more money, they make more money. And so this year, our profit sharing is going to pay out 17% of what they make. So you've got somebody who's making $18 an hour, a new person on the production line. They work a little bit of overtime. They end up with $45,000, $50,000 for the year. And then they're going to get 17% of that as their bonus for the year. That is life-changing for these folks. That allows them to finally fix the car that's been troubling them forever, to finally get that thing done for their house, or to catch up on a couple bills or whatever it is. I got to be honest, cocktails are fun. I'd rather be drinking them than mixing them. But the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning that I get most excited about is knowing that we have the best benefits for our employees of all the places I've ever worked, and that we have this profit sharing plan. We've got just a great culture. We all like working with each other. We all work hard. But knowing that those employees are taken care of and that they can build a career here, that there's room for advancement that will help them with education, things like that, because frankly, I've got enough to be able to pass that on. Like that's where it's at, man. Because like I've said this 3 times already on this, I know, but we're all going to be dead soon. So what is it,
Yeah.
If you can't take care of other people and set yourself up to be able to take care of other people, what's the point?
And I think it goes back to what you said so elegantly, though, that perception of scarcity versus that perception of abundance, and changing your perception is your reality, but until you change it. And I have heard you coming from this place of abundance, where the clock, yes, time, right, is what is time? I heard a good quote the other day that your version of the past is just as imaginary as your prediction of the future, and I think that's really what I'm hearing from you today and everything that you're saying. And it's not an act. If I was to ask what your daily intention is as we're wrapping up, but like, what is, before you put those slippers on, what are you saying to yourself, Jon? Like, what is that morning motivation and intention that you have?
What's coming to mind, my knee-jerk answer to that question is, luckily, I don't need to have one, because every day I get up, there are hard days and there are fun days and there are good days and there are things that happen that are completely unexpected. But all in all, what a great life. I get to participate in a system at work and be surrounded by competent people and, and again, competent, everybody's messing up, but competent in that we're, just normal people who all care about what we do. And so I don't really get out of bed and have to talk myself into anything, because what an incredible life that I get to be here right now doing this. It's I don't know, I'm just lucky.
I love that. And you keep mentioning gratitude. And I think gratitude always really helps when life starts getting really stormy or busy or loud or fast. I think gratitude just has that way of slowing us back down to Tyler's earlier point. Sometimes I think I viewed slowing down as a bad thing, coming from that corporate where every dollar I had down to the minute, and people probably thought I was a psychopath, but down to the minute how much money I made. And if it wasn't in line with how much money I made, then that was certainly a task that I was not going to be doing any longer. So
yeah, sure.
That efficiency spell, I guess.
Yeah.
Go, Jon.
I was just going to say that's absolutely needed. We are constantly reviewing efficiencies and how do we do this better, but we're doing it at a pace where everybody's able to catch their breath and push through it purposefully and intelligently. And so far, so good.
Dude, well, Jon, thanks for being on Timeout with Leaders, man. Your voice is much needed out there. We can tell you that. We do this quite often, and it's just thanks for your lunch break. And I got to come check out that speakeasy when I come visit Kevin one of these days up there.
Love to have you up, and we'll take you out for Oaxacan old fashioned afterwards.
Okay. Sign me up for that.